Namaste, my fellow strikers. Holy Materia here, back with another Shinobi Striker video. Today we're going to be talking about how to play base battle, so let's get right into it. Okay, so let's start by talking about team composition. So like in every game mode, this is probably the most important thing, and it's the first thing that you do when the game starts. So like I said in the how to play flag video, I'm not a big proponent of Rainbow Squad being the best thing. So like, I don't think that it's always best to have one of each class or one of each type. And in base battle, Rainbow Squad is definitely not the best composition. It's never a bad comp because it's balanced, but it's not the best. So in base battles, defense types are by far the best class. So when you go into a base battle, you want to make sure you have at least one defense type. You shouldn't ever go into a base battle without any defense types on your team because they have such a huge advantage over all the other classes in the game. So it might be best to even have two defense types on your team, and then a healer and a DPS. It could be a range or an attack type. It doesn't really matter because the DPS base battle is probably the game mode where DPSs are the least useful, but they have their uses and we'll talk about it later. And because of Water Pillar, healers are also very important now. So I'd say that they're the second most important after defense types because it's so easy to capture bases using Water Pillar. So yeah, you want to make sure you have at least one defense type, but two is even better. But to be honest, like really even 3 or 4 defense types are good in a base battle. But I personally consider having 3 of one class to be cheesy, and it starts making the game just like really not fun for anybody to play if you have like 3 or 4 defense types. But it's not uncommon to see squads running like 4 defense types in a base battle, or maybe 3 and then like a DPS, or 3 and a healer or something like that, because they really are just like so much better than everybody else in base battles. This may sound obvious, but when the match first starts, don't forget to capture your own base. Sometimes everybody goes to B, or a few people go to B, and somebody else will go to try to capture the enemy's base right away, and then everybody completely forgets to cap their own base, and it's a really bad way to start the match. It puts you at a severe disadvantage when the other team captures your base before you do. To go along with that, it's probably best that at least a couple people stay and capture your home base first, because if you only leave one person to do it, it takes significantly longer to capture a base, like depending on how many people are on there. If there's just one person, it takes a lot longer. And the amount of time that it takes for one person to capture the home base on certain maps, the enemy team can make it to your base before you're able to capture it. And if that person that gets over there is better than the person that's there trying to capture the base, and then you might not be able to capture the home base. So I'd suggest at least leaving 2 people on there. And it's not even a bad idea to leave like 3 or even 4, because it gets captured like instantly, and then you can all proceed from that point on. So the beginning of matches is pretty much the same. So both teams will capture their own base and head to B, and one team or both teams might send like one person to capture the enemy's base. So the beginning of the match almost always looks something like that, except for on the rain map, because A and C are so close together. A lot of times people will just go straight to the enemy base, like right after they capture their own base, or even just going straight there right away. They might send 2 or 3 people over there, and maybe not send people to B right away. But it just depends on it just depends. The matches will vary, but for the most part, the teams will capture their home base, go and fight over B, and maybe 1 or 2 people will try to capture the enemy's base. So just like in Flag, there are different strategies when it comes to how to capture bases. Some people play more defensively, like they'll try to capture their own base and then capture B, and then just try to hold those 2. All the different strategies have their own pros and cons. So this one is good because since it's conservative, it can be easier, especially for new players, because there's less things to think about. So if you're only worried about your own base and keeping B, then those are the only 2 things that you're doing, and you're not really having to think about when to rotate and how to rotate and things like that. So it's kind of like an easy strategy. But the problem is that if the enemy team captured your base, then they suddenly put a lot of pressure on you, because you only ever will have B base along with your own base. But playing so defensively doesn't put any pressure on the enemy team. So in some ways it's safe, but the other team is also they're not so worried. Other teams like to play more aggressively, where they'll try to capture the enemy base, and then they'll focus on like rotating to wherever they need help. So of course the goal for everybody is to triple cap, to have all 3 bases, because the points accumulate much faster the more bases you have. So if you have 3 bases, then you can win a lot faster. But as you rotate, you end up leaving openings. So it will leave, like, you might end up leaving B open or your home base open or something like that, and then the other team will be able to capture your bases. So a big mistake that I see, especially newer players, make a lot is that they will just constantly be rotating. No matter like what class they're playing or like what the situation is, they'll capture a base and then they'll just go on to the next base as soon as they capture. Even I've seen some people capture bases, like I've seen the enemy team capture a base and see me coming and then leave that base and just let me capture it for free. And I don't really understand like the logic behind that. But one thing is that holding bases is as important as capturing bases. So you don't want to just get a base and then immediately leave it. You want to make sure you can hold a base, especially if you're a defense type, because defense type should basically be holding on to a base the entire match. So they want to get either B or the opponent's base or their home base and just kind of keep that base for as long as they can during that match. So the other classes are the ones that are going to be rotating. Like the DPS classes, like attack and range, are going to be trying to like capture the enemy base and rotate into whoever needs help. And then also the healer is going to be going to whoever needs to be healed, or also capturing bases using their water pillar. The defense type shouldn't really be rotating unless you only have one base and your teammates are unable to capture another base, and then you can maybe go to help them, but still be wary of the base that you were holding before. Like if you see somebody else taking it, then you need to go back there and recapture it, or stop them from capturing it and continue to hold it. And then you can rely on your teammates to be rotating and capturing new bases. So after the initial capture of a base, the defense type's main role is to hold bases. And then defense types should be using utility moves, like the moves like Sand Shield, Nido Jizo, Kamui Climax, things that can help them capture bases and hold bases. And they could also use like CC moves, like crowd control kind of stuff, where they can either like knock people away, or like area of effect moves like partial expansion jutsu, or like earth pillar explosion, things like that can knock people away from the bases. Snake thrust is also a really great move for base battle because it just has so much utility, and it breaks water pillar and sand shield and guards, and it also heals you. So and defense types want to have something that can heal themselves also, so that they can sustain themselves without needing help from the healer, so that the healer doesn't really have to worry so much about the defense type, and they can do more to help the range and attack to help them capture new bases, so that the defense types can pretty much hold their base the whole match without really needing that much backup. So things like Snake Thrust, Demon Hunter gives you back health, Petrified Jutsu, or Subterranean Voyage, all those kind of moves to give yourself some health. Then also Hazan Strike is good on base battle because it's just good on every game mode, and it breaks water pillar. So that move is also good. And then for the DPS classes, you want to make sure if you go into a base battle and you're playing attack or range, you need to have some kind of water pillar and sand shield breakers. So because that's going to be your main thing, is to be able to nullify those defensive moves that the healers and defense types use to capture and hold bases. So apart from just trying to get kills, which is helpful, but that's not like the main task in a base battle, you need to be able to stop the more objective base classes from being able to hold their bases, or to being able to capture bases in the first place. Because a big thing in base battle, like the old saying goes, prevention is better than cure. It's better to stop the other team from capturing the base in the first place, because it's much harder to take the base. Like once, especially if you're going against a defense type, if the defense type has the base, it's a lot easier for him to hold on to it than it is for him to capture it from you. So if you can stop the enemy team from getting it in the first place, like if you see it, if a defense type comes and they put up sand shield and you have a sand shield breaker and you can stop him from getting it, that's the ideal situation. Because once the defense type gets the base, if they're any good at playing defense, it will be very difficult for you to take it back from him. So range and attack types should be running at least one sand shield and water pillar breaker, and then the other move is sort of up to you. And also remember that some scientific ninja tools can break water pillar and sand shield, like the fire release bullet. And then also moves that have crowd control are really good on base battle. Like for example, Majestic Destroyer Flame is one of the best moves on base battle because not only does it break water pillar and sand shield and breaks people's guards, but it also blows people away, so it can knock people away from the bases. Also moves like Almighty Push, that breaks sand shield and water pillar too, and it will knock people away. Universal Pull can pull people out of water pillar. So yeah, there's a bunch of moves that are good for the DPS classes. And then for healers, they want to run the water pillar if they have it, and then something to heal your teammates. So I prefer to use Eno's heal while I'm inside the water pillar because it's a global heal. If you are a healer, you should have some kind of global heal, like whether it's Eno's heal, the Mind Transmission, Palm Sage Jutsu, or if it's Mitonic Regeneration, the ultimate, or the long distance healing, Tsunade's ultimate with the slugs. You should have some way to heal people that are all over the place, because while healers should be rotating to a certain extent, they're not as fast as attack and range types. So if you are relying on something like just cellular extraction or healing tag to heal your teammates, a lot of your teammates are going to end up dying while you're trying to get to them to whatever base they're on. Also, I think that base battle is the best game mode for Mitotic Regeneration. This is the game mode where it's probably the most useful to bring somebody back after they get KO'd, because it's helpful in every game mode, but like in combat it doesn't really matter as much because that still counts as a death on your team, so it's not as helpful as it could be. But in base battle, when you bring somebody back and they're back on that base defending or trying to capture that base, it's a real nuisance to the team that just spent like whatever jutsu or whatever, however much time they spent trying to kill that person, and then they are immediately revived. It's a blow to that team because yeah, the numbers are important on the bases. Base battle is also the game mode where all the summons shine the most. Even the salamander is the best on base battle compared to the other game modes, although I'd prefer the C2 dragon for range types. But all the summons are okay for base, and even moves like Green Rain Ground Hold and stuff like that are viable on base battle, whereas they're not really that good on other game modes where you're running around all the time. But on base battle, a lot of moves that aren't really good in other game modes are good because people are staying in the same place for so long. So there's also a lot of ultimates that are much better on base battle, like the ultimates that like drop on you, like Kidding or bring down the house jutsu, or like Hashirama's ult. Like all those kind of things are much better on base battle than they are in the other game modes. Okay, so to sum it up, remember that you need to have at least one defense type on your team. Don't forget to come in there with some kind of sand shield and water pillar breaker. Remember that holding bases is as important as capturing bases, and remember that rotating, especially capturing the enemy's base, will put pressure on the enemy team so that they're forced to rotate in and leave whatever bases they're currently contending. Alright, so yeah, that's all I got for this one. Thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate all the support that you guys give me on all these videos. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Everybody stay safe out there. Peace and love.